Okay, now we're recording.
Recording now?
Yeah, we're recording now. Okay, and your name is what?
I'm Hugh Bullington.
Where do you live?
5505 Yanis, Fort Smith, Arkansas.
You can open your eyes. Okay, and what was your parents' names?
My dad was Joe Pinson Bullington.
Yeah, and your mother's?
My mother was Eva Bullington.
Okay. Well, let's go back and start a little further before we get into you so much. Your granddad on your dad's side, what was his name?
My granddad was John Scruggs Bullington.
Okay. Did he go by John or Scruggs?
John.
He went by John, okay.
Some call him Scruggs and some call him John.
Okay. And when was he born? And
he was born in 1864, and he died in 1950 at 86.
Okay, and his wife?
My grandmother, Perry Ann Bullington, born 1869, died 1950 at age 81.
What was her maiden name?
She was Perry Ann Jones.
Okay, and it was her mother then that was a Boone? Okay, but that was the side that the Boone family was on.
Right.
Okay, and what was your granddad and on your mother's side? His name was what?
Samuel Pinkerton.
Okay.
And he was born in 1875 and died in 1963.
And his wife?
His wife was first wife was Josie Pinkerton.
Okay.
And her maiden name was Josie Michael.
Okay.
And she died in 1932. But she was born April 18th, 1870.
So 70. She was 62 when she died.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was older than my grandfather.
Okay.
So
Well, what did Sam Pinkerton do for a living?
he farmed most of his life, and till Fort Chaffee came, took his place over there at Manus, and then he moved over to Crawford County on Oak Grove Road. He lived over there for several years. He finally moved back to Barling, right by my mother and dad there. And they took care of him pretty well until he passed away.
And their other kids besides Eva was who?
Addie Booker, which
Addie. Yeah, Addie.
Yeah, and then Lois Alverson, and then there was my mother Eva Bullington, and then there's a Hilton brother to him was Hilton Pinkerton.
And Paul.
And Paul was the youngest of that family.
Okay. And your granddad's kids, who were they? What was all? Can you remember all the your dad's brothers and sisters?
Well, pretty well. I have a list in yonder. I should have got that, I guess. But Aubrey Bullington was the oldest boy, and Myrtle Stanicky Bullington was the oldest girl, and there was 10 of those kids, children.
Okay.
Will Bullington and Joe Bullington and see, I guess that was all the boys. And then there was, of course, Aunt Mert and Aunt Sheila. She married a Nolan. And there was Aunt Doll. She married a Boatwright. And there's Aunt Grace Taylor. And then there was
Zella. Zella.
Zella Bullington, Chancey, which
Zella Chancey.
And then Aunt Nona Williamson.
Nona Williamson.
And then there was It's Aunt Olive.
Olive?
She married a Hayes.
Olive Hayes. What was there? There was a Baxter that evidently didn't live through childhood.
Yeah, he was born. Baxter was born at birth, and
Died within a year, I think it was.
yeah, I think it was within a year.
And who was Pearl?
Oh, Pearl, she was the youngest of the girls. She was married to Herman McMahon. So I think that's...
She died in her 30s, didn't she?
Yeah, she died in 1939 or 40 along there with pneumonia.
Oh, okay. And she was Bill McMahon.
Oh, yeah,
and,
Bill
and
McMahon
Doris's.
and Doris Ann McMahon's mother.
Okay. And what did your granddad John Scruggs do for a living?
John Scruggs' granddad run a grocery store in Bullington there for many years, and he was one of the first in that town to have electricity. He bought him a Delco generator thing and had it hooked up in the store and in the house. And I remember going there first time and seeing that, and it was kind of astonishing to me to be able to see see that generator put out electric. But every once in a while, when it'd kick on things, well, of course, everything dimmed in the house at the store. But it lasted for several years before he finally got electricity put into the house and then also into the store.
Made his own electricity for
Yeah.
that. Yeah. What was he doing over? Your dad was born over in Paw Paw Bottoms in Oklahoma, wasn't he?
Well, that's what I was told. They were farming over there, and I think that's possibly before they moved to Bartlett. Now, he used to own about 100 and something acres up there, which is now along Strozer Lane, a road up there. And somebody told that he traded that 100 something acres for that grocery store there in Bartlett. And he operated a grocery store for many years there. And we used to gather nearly every Saturday afternoon down at their house there. All the sisters and brothers that was around would gather there at my granddad's and grandmother's and all us kids. And we always had a good time. We looked forward to Saturday afternoons to be down there. And of course, we all got a bottle of soda pop and maybe a candy bar or something like that. And that was our entertainment.
You told me something interesting about Aubrey. He moved to Colorado?
Yes, Aubrey worked for the General Motors, and he moved to Denver, Colorado. And he invented the brake adjuster for the brakes on cars, which
Start wheel.
Yeah.
And the tool to adjust it?
Yeah. Instead of using a screwdriver or something to turn that ratchet around, well, he invented a tool that was kind of curved on the end where you could it was real fast. And I remember him coming back home one time. It was about 1937. Of course, he had been home before that some, but anyway, he was driving a brand new Pontiac, and General Motors gave him a brand new Pontiac and bonus for inventing that tool, which is used, I guess, sometime or up a few years ago in most garages throughout the United States, I guess. Because I remember I've seen them.
I've got them.
Well,
I used one the other day.
Yeah.
Now, he had a 36, 37 Pontiac?
37.
37 Pontiac.
Yeah.
And he was a cast me out when he came to town, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was quite a, when he come into town driving that new Pontiac and everything, and had found out that it had been given to him for inventing that tool and everything, why, we thought he was really something, and which he was at that time. But Uncle Hope died a few years later, and he had a son named Jack, and I don't know whether Jack's still living or where he's at or anything like that. He was around Denver, Colorado the last few years ago that I heard.
What did you say about during the war about a war hero? That somebody was decorated in the war?
Oh, Roy Bullington?
Was that Roy Bullington?
Yeah,
Who was
World
he?
War II.
Who was he?
He was Uncle Will Bullington's son. Uncle Will had 5 boys by his first wife when she died. And there was Carl, Harold, Roy, and James Earl. He also had a daughter, which was, can't even think of her name now, but I understand, or best I know right now, she is still living, but all the boys are gone. But Roy was decorated. He was a gunner on a big airplane during the World War II over in Italy, I believe it was, or someplace over there, and he got a big recommendation for shooting down so many planes and things this way.
You said it was Jack that lived with you all a while?
No.
No, or was that?
No, that was Harold.
Harold.
And James Earl. And Carl and Harold lived with my grandmother and them for a few years. And not Harold, but James Earl and Roy lived with us some back in the late 1928, somewhere around there. And after their mother died and everything. And then their dad remarried and had several more kids. I think altogether he had about 10 kids altogether.
Okay, well, in your family you have 2 older sisters.
Yeah, Doreen is the oldest, and Joanne, and then the sisters.
Yeah. Then 1923.
I was born in 1923.
Okay.
And then there's me next to Joanne, and then there was Jack, who is passed away, and then there was Paul next to Jack.
Robert Paul.
Robert Paul. He was living in Pasadena, Texas when he passed away. And then there was Steve, who is still living in Barling. And there's Jimmy, lives in Barling. Jimmy Scruggs Bullington. And then Delmer Bullington lives in Barling.
Okay.
Well, in the edge of Fort Smith. And that completes our family. Of course, we had a baby brother that was born at birth.
Died at birth.
He died at birth. And so there was 8. There's actually counting that one that died, there's been 9 of us. And of course, we had hard times back in those days, just like a lot of other people did. We really had to work on the farm and things to make a living, while Dad worked in the coal mines over at Gentle Lynn over in there, and he worked over there for several years and in the coal mines. And one time he got his leg crushed and everything, and put quite a strain on the family of trying to keep up with the cattle and farming and this and that.
Yeah. You said that when you was born, you thought that the family was living out at the Chaffee, out there around the headquarters area or the gym.
Yes. Joanne was born out there too. I heard later that's where Joanne was born. Now Doreen was born I'm not real sure now. But Joanne and I were born. Joanne was a couple of years old when I was born, and it's where Fort Chaffee is now, about where the headquarters building is, or the gym along there.
Okay, it's up on the top of the little hill up through there, and There's a farm up there that,
Right,
that
we farmed.
Joe was renting, right?
Dad did, yeah. Dad farmed up there, and that at that time, that property out there was owned by Rudd Ross, which had the Dodge dealership in Fort Smith.
Okay. And how long do you remember you lived there? Did you?
I don't.
Years? Do you remember it? Do you remember living there?
No, we moved from there before well, in a way, I got whether I've seen a picture of the place later or something in year, but in a way, I kind of remember how the house looked, but I'm not real positive on that. But then we moved back to Barling, up on the where Joe Shane lives out there now.
Off Painter Lane?
No, off Painter Lane.
Yeah, they're along the railroad track.
Right. And, well, Painter or Strozer, which was really off Painter, I guess.
Yeah, Painter Lane.
But we had to go in off of Strozer up. We had a little road on the railroad right away to get down in there.
Because that was between Strozer and Painter.
Yeah.
And then you lived on what, the north side of the railroad track?
Yes. They lived on the north side. And
So you remember that? Y'all farmed in there?
I remember that. I remember we had no horse we called Bill. And I remember very distinctly. And anyway, our cows we had got out one evening, and it was out on the railroad right away, and railroad, and we all started. My mom had noticed it or something, and we all went to screaming and running up there to try to get them back in, and the gate was open, and just before we got to the gate, old Bill just passed all of us, just in a hard run, and he went up there around those cows and run them back into the pasture.
Your horse?
The horse did.
Is a horse, huh?
That's right.
Herded the cows back in.
Herded the cows back into the pasture.
Right.
He run them back in there just like he knew what he was doing.
Must have been pretty smart. must know what was going on.
Well, we kept old Bill for several years after that, and but he was one. My granddad Scruggs Bullington dealt in horses, traded and sold horses and everything. But old Bill was a horse that had what they call a fistula on his shoulders. And it would get so bad that you couldn't put harness on him with the horse, the collar and everything.
Is it like a sore, a fistula?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's fistula, and my granddad had been doctoring him about everything, and he told my dad, said, "Joe, I'll give you that horse if you think you can cure him up." I said, "I can't." So Dad took him and brought him up there, and I remember my dad taking about a 3-inch blade knife, and he got it on top of his shoulder. He would run that knife down real slow into the flash, clear down just about as far as he put that knife blade. But he'd do it just a little bit at a time, and then he filled those places up with lime, just plain old lime. And he did that several places on that horse, and it began to clear up, and he cured him.
Oh, good.
And we kept old Bill for a few years, and he was a real fast horse. I mean, he could really run and everything. We never did plow much with him or anything. We had other horses that we used at that time. But that's just some of the experience that, of course, there's lots more back through the time that I could tell you, but
was Bill the one you raced, or that guy raced that time?
yeah.
Was it the one that y'all took to town and was in the ring, couldn't get on, but Joanne you had to get on backwards?
Yeah, every time she'd go to get on, she'd throw her wrong leg over, and she'd get on backwards. And there's men sitting out there by that little grocery store. They got tickled at her. She really told them off in a hurry. So finally, one of the men come over there and held his hand down and said, "Put your left foot in my hand." It says, when I lift you up, well, you sling that other leg over the horse. So we got up top of the hill, and there was two boys up there. One of them I knew, Robert Taylor, but he was about 13 years old. And he bet that guy that old Bill could outrun his horse, and for $2, they bet. And of course, we wasn't going to let him have ride old Bill because we, knew better. But anyway, he was so much bigger and everything that he just took him away from us. Of course, they started racing, and we could see them at different places, open through down through the clearings, the road that he was running on. And of course, when they got back, why, old Bill had won. But when we got home then, why, old Bill was still sweating and lathered up and everything, and Dad come out. We had some groceries which we carried home on old Bill, and Dad come out and saw old Bill, and he said, "You been running that horse?" And we said, "No." He said, "Well, how come it all lathered up and everything?" And I told him what happened. And I remember Dad didn't say another word. He just reached up and took a rein off the bridle, and he gave me a good thrashing. I remember it to this day. I mean, I had stripes on my back, and he said, "If you would have fought until you couldn't fight anymore," he said, "I wouldn't have whipped you." Well, that made a believer out of me. I would have fought a buzzsaw at that time.
Well, it was your horse, and you wasn't supposed to. Nobody's supposed to take it away.
That's right. And Joanne, of course, he didn't do anything to Joanne, but he did me. But I still remember it. But I still loved Dad. I never did have any hard feelings for him because I knew what he was
wanting to teach you.
Teaching me to do. And of course, in this day and time, why, I could probably have put in penitentiary for that.
What was it? Y'all told too about one of the horses that ever got away from you, and every time you'd go to grab the reins, it'd run just a little further.
Yeah.
You'd have to pick up the groceries. You had to pick up the groceries and go a little further. He led you all the way home that way.
Yeah. Old Bill had the same horse, and we rode him to this store. It's about a mile from home, and Joanne and I both, again, we had been to the store, and we come up this hill from the store there, had our groceries, where the saddle got loose. So I said, "Well, I'll get off here," and he said, "You hand me the groceries," and I said, "We'll tighten that saddle up, belt up." And so she got off too, and when we were fixing to tighten up the strap, why, old Ben took off. And he'd run up the road a little piece, stop, eat grass, and turn around and look at us. And we'd carry our groceries, get almost up there to him. He'd stand there, and I'd reach out to get the rein, and he'd take off again. And he did us that way nearly all the way home. And he acted like he was enjoying it.
Well, where'd y'all move from when you left the place up there off Stroger and Painter?
We moved to the Williamson place, right there on
Church Street.
Church Street, just going west out of Bullington, just across the railroad track. It's right up there on the right. And we lived there in 1920. Well, we moved there sometime 1926, 27, 28, along there. But we lived there, and the Depression hit, and of course, people lost their jobs and everything else, but Dad was still working some in the mines. He and a guy by the name of Roe Beeson lived across the street there. And Dad had a car, 28 Chevrolet. And when the Depression hit, why, we just, couldn't make it on what he was making in the mines. And, we all could. Of course, I wasn't but about 5 years old at that time, and we had to help any way we could if we had a chance to make any money or whatever. But anyway, when it really got rough, why we moved from that place to Rye Hill, in a little log house up there, or what you call the Weir place. And we lived there 2 or 3 years. I don't remember just exactly. It might have been, I know it was 2 years. And of course, Dad was still back at the mines. He went back to the mines, worked in them, and was making enough for us to get by on all right.
You worked nights?
Yeah, well, he went to work, at 1 o'clock and worked till midnight. And then, of course, he had to walk. It was about 5 miles, and he had to walk home, walk to work, and walk home. I remember one night during winter time, why, had a lot of ice and snow on the ground, and it was slick. I remember Dad had to walk home from the mines at 5 miles. And I remember when he got home, every once in a while we ran out on the front porch to see if we could see him or hear him. And finally he got in hearing distance where we could hear the ice cracking as he came down the lane. And when he got home, he had a pair of rubber boots on, and his feet had swollen, he couldn't get those boots off. We tried to pull and help him, and couldn't. So finally, he found a place over on the edge of the porch that had rotted out on one board, and he was able to hook his boot heel right down through that and pull them off. And I remember that very distinctly. And but we farmed on the side. I had to drop out of school, and 1 year because he got his leg crushed in the mines. And I was about 8-year-old, 7 or 8, and I had to do the plowing myself because he couldn't. He had a good crop of corn and stuff, and I was plowing.
And you wasn't very big,
No.
anyway, and then at 8 years old, how does a small 8-year-old do that plow?
Well, when I got to the ends of the row, where most people just pick up the plow and set it over where they wanted it, well, I had to drag it over. I had to stop my horse and drag it over. And that was one of the hard parts of life back then. But I did. I had to quit school and make that crop because his leg was going to be in cast for several days and weeks. And so that was another hard part of life back then. But I look back on it, I don't regret any of it as far as that goes, except put me 1 year behind in school.
Well, you learned what plows to use and how to use them, didn't you?
Yeah, I knew. I remember my uncle, John Newman, he hired me one time to plow some corn. So he told me to be down there at a certain time, which I did. I got down there that morning early, and I had the mules harnessed and out there, and I went out and changed my plow blades that goes on the cultivator. And he came out there. He hadn't been out yet. He came out there, and he looked, and he said, "You're the first person that I ever hired that knew what kind of plows to put on to plow corn." That made me feel good, of course.
Yeah.
But I remember my aunt, Olive, which was John's wife, she wanted to know if I'd eat breakfast. I said, "Yeah, I've eaten." She said, "Well, I got some good biscuits and homemade jelly in here. Come in and have some before you go to the field." So I went in, and she made biscuits about yay big, about like a saucer almost. And she slapped a lot of good jelly on there and on that hot biscuit and gave me one, and it was great.
Well, so that was over. So y'all was living on Rye Hill then.
Yeah.
And it's a weird place. Now, ain't Addie and Uncle Roy Booker lived over there too around that time?
Yeah, they lived about a mile across the fields there from us. And,
Said he had a potato Raised a lot of potatoes?
Yeah, they raised a lot of potatoes and watermelons and things back then. He had a big, what you call a potato house dug down in the ground and rock walls and everything. Of course, made slope where trucks could drive in there, and he sold potatoes to the grocery stores and supplied them during the winter months.
So that's over about where they got the Doppler site now, I understand.
Well, yeah, it was. And anyway, he stored a lot of potatoes for other farmers around there too. So they, of course, a lot of them did the same thing. They sold with stores because he couldn't cover all stores and all. But of course, he raised a lot of watermelons, and he raised one of the biggest watermelons I had ever seen. I think it was almost big as number 3 wash tub. And he had to roll it up on the truck to get it to the house and roll it off with boards. It was big and heavy. I remember when he set it up, rolled up on the porch, so his window sill was up yay high, and you could see that watermelon, top of that watermelon out the window.
And a pretty big watermelon. Now, over at Rye Hill, they got this new place going in there called the Riley Farm.
Yeah, that was Raleigh Farms is now that's being built. I was out that way a few days ago, Lois and I, and saw where it's going. It's going to be a beautiful place, but that is what we called back in those days, like 1932 or 3 along there, I guess. 1930, 31. When we was on the weird place, they called that the old commission farm. Now they raised nothing but potatoes there. They had hundreds of acres up there. I forget how many acres in that property out there. And they had a big, what's called commission house. People brought their potatoes there, and then trucks from Fort Smith and surrounding towns would come out there and buy potatoes.
So that's the building now that they've remodeled to make it into a sales office.
I really thought that maybe the building had been torn down and moved, but Hugh or somebody told me that building was still there.
That's what they're claiming. Well, was there, I thought that same area up there, somebody had a dairy up there, the Gibbs Dairy, is that not that same area?
Well, yeah.
I've heard somebody mention the name Gibbs Dairy.
Yeah, Gibbs Dairy was on the hill right there on Highway 71. This was a little bit northeast of Gibbs Dairy, but it's all pretty close in there.
And up there up in that same area is where the Steep Hill Cemetery is.
Right.
A lot of our family is buried at Steep Hill. Names that you know and everything's up there.
Yeah, I got a lot of relatives born up there at Steep Hill, and of course got a lot buried at Barley. And that's where Uncle Herman McMahon is buried up there, and of course some of our Granddad Finger's family and Michael's. A lot of them buried up there at Steep Hill, as well as at Barley.
And probably after that y'all moved to Manus community?
Yeah, we moved from the Weir place back to what was called the Hendricks place, belonged to Jim Hendricks and John Paul Hendricks, their dad. There's 80 acres there, and we moved to that and farmed there for 2 or 3 years. And then after we moved from there, we moved back to, I guess we moved to the Kelly place then. That's right up the road from where we, from Manus. There's an old schoolhouse up there.
You went to school at Manus is what you remember a lot. Where did you go to school before then? Barley?
I started in school at Barley. And I went to school there when I was in the 1st grade and 2nd grade. And that's when we moved to Rye Hill. And then when
they have a school at Rye Hill?
Yeah, the old schoolhouse still standing, Rye Hill. I went to school there.
Where is it?
It's right along. Of course, I had nothing to do with it, really.
Just another old boy from Arkansas.
Yeah. And Leonard was he was a pretty good friend of mine all the time, even when we he didn't stay too long. He got sick or something. But I don't think he was with us when we went into Philippine Islands.
Now, on New Zealand, had the Japanese ever taken New Zealand?
No.
They never had to liberate it, did they? But New Caledonia they did, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
Don't know whether they
I'm
ever
not
had
real
liberty?
sure, since they made it staging here pretty quick after the war, the way I understand it.
What was it? You got that piece of metal off the plane in New Caledonia?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that one, of course, I think that was on our planes, you know.
That had crashed
Whether
or
it
something?
crashed or what, I don't know. And I made that bracelet, you know, with a pocket knife, and I think I still got it, younger.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, I said, no plane down there's been crashed or something. He said, you can go down and get all you want.
Piece of aluminum.
Aluminum.
It's aluminum, yeah.
And I went down there and got a piece of it. And he showed me how to.
You remember who your bunk mates were?
Jack Kegel and Donald Craig.
Donald Craig.
We wound up being, they were my first and second scout after we went into battle. And both of them good guys. Albert, you know, we call him Speedy. He's the one who lives in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. I still hope to get up there someday. But anyhow, they all got pretty teed off of me because I got a pass and they couldn't. I said, yeah. I said, you brown nose somewhere. And of course, I had nothing to do with it, really.
Just an old boy from Arkansas.
Yeah. And Leonard was he was a pretty good friend of mine all the time, even when we, he didn't stay too long. He got sick or something. But I believe he left us in New Guinea. I don't think he was with us when we went into Philippine Islands.
Now, on New Zealand, had the Japanese ever taken New Zealand?
No.
They never had to liberate it, did they? But New Caledonia they did, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
Don't know whether they ever
I'm not
had
real
liberty?
sure, since they made it staging here pretty quick after the war, the way I understand it.
What was it? You got that piece of metal off the plane in New Caledonia?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that one, of course, I think that was on our planes, you know.
That had crashed
Whether
or
it
something?
crashed or what, I don't know. And I made that bracelet, you know, with a pocket knife, and I think I still got it, younger.
Yeah.
And one of the guys there had made one, and he said, oh, I said, no plane down there's been crashed or something. He said, you can go down and get all you want.
Piece of aluminum.
Aluminum.
It's aluminum, yeah.
And I went down there and got a piece of it. And he showed me how to do it and everything, and I fixed it. And but New Caledonia was a beautiful island. I remember when we got off the ship and loaded into the trucks, and the road up where we were going was about 20 miles in. It was dusty. I mean, they were dusty. We were driving along, and they stopped, and there's a pipe coming out of a hillside, cold, fresh water. We all stopped there and washed our face off and got us a drink out of that and everything.
But that tasted good.
It tastes good. But anyway, we while we were in New Zealand, we didn't do any training much other than just orientation. You know what we've got to look forward to. And we stayed there. We got there. I guess it was right after the first of the year. And we got in New Caledonia on the 23rd of December. We had turkey and dressing, all the trimmings there. And then we stayed there, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. It was up in January sometime when we went to New Zealand. We were still in New Zealand about 18th or 19th of February.
44.
44. So we left there, boarded the ship, left there and went to New Guinea. And really New Guinea wasn't that bad a place to, we didn't have that much problem because they had already pinned the Japanese up at Wewak, New Guinea. They were up they claimed there's about 4,000 or 5,000 of them, but they couldn't get out because our line was set up along the Drenamore River, which we had a pillbox ever so often. These pillboxes were made out of coconut logs and sandbags, and you just had slips in case they tried to charge across the river or anything. And but if you got out of that pillbox, it was in water, just kind of a swamp. And there's a lot of big crocodiles along that river, and you could hear them out there at night, just growling and going on and sloshing around in that water. Anyway, being that is new, we thought that anything sun could have it any time, But about 2 or 3 days after we got there, why they gave. By that time, I'd already made corporal, and I didn't, and
Hadn't done anything.
I hadn't done anything really, But anyway, they had an outpost out in front of the main line. They had the natives clear out a big, I guess about 300 or 400 feet in front of the main line. Cleared the jungle out there, see, over toward the river. And so they, then in that was barbed wire and entanglements all along that line, several rows of them. And there was only one way you could get out to where we had to spend the night at, and it's follow a wire and zigzag out through those barbed wire.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they put 4 guys out there the first night. Told them they were going to be on that outpost.
Okay.
They'd have to listen to see if there's any of the enemy out there messing around at night.
Okay. Now the enemy couldn't go on the other way because of the mountains.
That's
they
right.
was trapped in there.
Huge mountains. They say it was thousands of miles across those mountains, see, to any other place. And they couldn't.
No, New Guinea, was it that big?
Oh yeah, New Guinea,
Big
huge
island.
place.
Okay.
I saw on the news or on the TV, they showing New Guinea last night, and they got one of the highest mountains in the world over there, and they even have snow and freezing. All the time we was over there, why we slept, without a shirt on or in our pup tents or anything like that. But anyway, and they had a telephone out there in the jungle, and they had listened. You listen to see if you hear anything. So this particular time, first night, the guys come in about 10 o'clock. They got scared. Of course, they'd ask you, "Well, y'all want to come in?" So the second night, not the same bunch, but another group. They wouldn't stay out there. So I took Willie Quintero and a guy by the name of, he was a little Spanish guy, little guy, and there's 4 of us, and I don't remember the other guys' names now. Seemed to me like whatever was Pope. I can't remember all their names. Anyway, but we got out there that evening to spend the night. So that night, sure enough, it was dark. I mean, it was kind of raining. And we was laying there talking or whispering back and forth. Of course, I had the telephone and heard something. Shh. We listened. I was on the phone describing it to the come to CP back there. One of the officers on duty. So I could hear it coming closer. Of course, I was the only one talking, you know. And it was dark. You could hold your hand out. You couldn't see your hand anyway. So I told him, I said, shh, it's getting real close. I'm going to quit talking. Officer said, y'all want to come in? I said, no. We're going to stay. And ever what it was, it sounded like somebody had on a raincoat coming through the jungle. It sounded, and I thought, well, I can't see them, they can't see me. We had cots out there with mosquito bars on them, see.
Yeah.
And it sounded like that, ever what it was, got within about 10 feet of us. We just as quiet as we could be. It seemed like all at once it turned and went the other direction.
You didn't have any infrared then, did you?
No, that hadn't been invented yet, as far as I know. Anyway, so we spent the night. Well, the next night, we stayed out there again. Well, they sent word out there that I could send one man back to go to a movie up on the beach up there. It's about 3/4 of a mile up there from where our line was. So Willie wanted to go. So I said, okay. So the other three stayed out there. Well, at night, when he come back from the movie, why, I don't know how he ever found his way through. But pretty soon I heard something say, Sarge, don't shoot. It's Willie. And he's down on his hands and knees. I said, okay, come on in. And he come in, crawling on his hands and knees, and he had drank some of that white lightning that made there in the jungle, and he was just as drunk as he could be.
And y'all's out in front of the front lines again.
And so he stayed. Of course, he went to bed. So I had to pull his duty and mine too that night. So the next day, why, they told us we could come back. But, and I don't remember now whether they quit putting anybody out there or not, but that was training for us, see. They knew we were going to run into, face some things like that someday. And I guess we showed them that we could, you know, handle something like that. And, but then we still on the line there, and Bob Hope came to line. And they sent so many men to go, you know, but I didn't get to go. And the guys said it really enjoyed it, you know. They were on the beach where they was having the thing, so
right.
And they come back telling about it, the other thing. So I didn't get to see Bob Hope. But we stayed there, I don't know, see, we left there in August, I guess. No, we got there in August from New Zealand. We stayed there until we moved on December. We headed for our Philippine office. And of course they took us, wrote barges in, picked us up, took us out to ship. And we left there and got aboard the ship to go to Philippines. And they briefed us. We had already briefed us some on the beach while we were waiting on the ship. Everything had really got pretty quiet in New Guinea. Some of the guys took British, had an airport there with fighter planes on it, and every day 2 or 3 of them would go out and bomb. We whacked some of those places up in there. And some of the guys, the other guys, they would spot them and ask them if they want to go, you know, if they want to go. And they had this in mangled steel runways, holes, you know, remember seeing them?
Yeah.
that they had out there. And nearly every time one of those planes come in, they had wrecked that thing and, you know, it's rough and everything. Sometimes they'd lean over and that wing had hit that metal, then they'd straighten it back up. And some of them just plain crashed, but none of them got killed over it.
Huh.
And some of the guys went up with them on a bombing range. They want to meet you. I said, no way.
Was over there at the Drunamore River, was that where the Japanese came across one time there so bad and they killed some of them, they just stacked them up?
They stacked them up.
When was that, before you got there? Or?
Yeah, just before.
You didn't have to fight really at New Guinea?
No, the only thing I took patrol out in the jungle, and it was hot and terrible, hot. Of course, the only way you could find your way around or back was by a compass. I could read a compass then pretty good, but I don't think I even could read one now. But we went by that, and I had a squad out, and we going out through the jungle. We come up on a big, long water hole like. Of course, we was all hot and sweaty and run out of water, so we all took our canteen cups up and filled it up and dropped the adamant tablet in there and shook it right good, you know. And while we were doing that, had a Spanish guy. He was a little heavier, you know, than we were as far as that. He was built stockier, you know. So we all got it up and we turned it up and drinking water. Somebody says, look down there. There's an enemy laying down there, all bloated up, laying in that water.
Oh.
And this old boy saw that, and he turns white as sheet. He's dark complected, though, anyway. And he just shot about 3 feet out there. He just puked everywhere. Anyway, that was quite an experience there. But we always found our way back to the main line. And but as far as any combat there, why, we didn't really have anything.
But they had some before.
Oh yeah, just when we got there.
They'd been really rough.
Yeah,
fighting.
There were still parts of body along the river, and of course they had those jeeps. Of course you couldn't go anywhere except the other side of the river, more or less. But they had them with those long pipes. You know, they drive across that river about 3 or 4 feet of water. That water could clear up in there, that little jeep. Men's head up, they just keep it going. But anyway, we left there and headed for Philippine Islands. And it was 3 days before we got to joining the other troops' ships. And I remember there was ships coming from every direction. And the ships we were on were so far apart. And as those ships come from all directions, we were going up through a 10-mile narrow strait of the Negro Islands, close to Lake. And they had all pulled together again, see. And those ships would just fall in line, just as smooth as you ever saw. And we counted, standing on the deck there, we counted 129 airplanes in one group headed for Luzon or late up there at San Favorite where we were going to land. So,
the B-17?
Yeah, I guess.
29s or something?
Yeah, it was one or the other, but there was a bunch of them. And these ships, as far as you see, as we started up in there, they're still dropping in. And they claimed there was 900 and something ships headed for that Luzon up there. But there's already battle wagons and all kinds of stuff up there bombing the coast.
Shelling the beach.
Yeah. So anyway, when we got a piece in that night, we got in there late, going through that strait, and they had picked up a submarine up in there. And they sound the alarm for us all to get below. And of course we drug our feet the way we wanted to see the action. We'd see them firing, you know, and everything. And finally, over in a cove up in their county from where we were, all at once, fire just popped. They sunk it, the submarine. Just blew it all to pieces. And it even, you know, it blew up so much that fire just come out of the
water.
Yeah. And they come on the speaker and said everything was all right. We can get back on the deck. But we never had got down. But right behind us, there's, of course, the enemy then was flying those Kawasaki, or what do you call it? Not jump out.
Kamikaze.
Yeah, kamikaze. Yeah. And one of those planes, Zeros, right hit on the ship that was just right behind us back there. Of course, they was trying to get us below land too, see. But they said that plane hit the deck, and the pilot just flopped out on the deck. But it didn't do that much damage.
It didn't explode, evidently.
Yeah. And they just kicked it overboard.
Well, I saw a thing on TV the other night about the kamikazes they have on one of those channels, and they were pretty effective, especially in the at Okinawa. They sent out like hundreds, 800 of them or something, and they did a lot of damage.
Well, anyway, we of course went on. I don't know, it was about the next day or something. We got ready. Well, the next morning, I guess. They gave orders to, of course, to unload, you know, to hit the beach. And of course, had these landing barges with door dropped down
in the front. Yeah.
And they gave orders that when we got in the barge, and when we hit as far as it could go, it couldn't get clear up on the bank. You know. We were to pile out of there. And we were not, if one of our buddies went down in the water under, we were not to help. You keep going and get on land and get a position. And it was pretty hard to see some of those guys go down. Now, whether they got out or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we hit the beach at 9:38 that morning. And I was in the third wave. There had been two groups went in first. And I was in the third wave.
On Luzon, at what town did you say?
San Faber.
Faber.
Yeah, F-A-B-R-I-N, I believe, something like that. Anyway, the enemy was, after being shelled for 72 hours, they said, by battle wagons and airplanes, there was still some on the beach, dug in concrete bunkers. Of course, the only thing we could do was cover one another and get grenades in them. You couldn't get them out otherwise. And anyway, we did that. For the first day, we were supposed to make 14 miles or so in so many days. And of course, we couldn't. It was done right time we got 3 or 4 days while we were on the street. We had so many men wounded or killed. So anyway, the first day, they loaded us all in what we call one of those buffalo tank flies. And it had to drop down too. And we were going down this road, and the enemy started firing at us with anti-tank guns. And of course, they stopped, give orders, everybody to pile out and take cover. Well, the Lieutenant Hammond, he was in the back from the door, you know, and all of us run out and took cover. About the time we all got out, a shell hit right inside of that tank. Of course, it just blew him to pieces. And we stayed out. We didn't get back on them. From then on, why, we finally got the anti-tank gun knocked out. But while we were, right after that first day, we got we heard an airplane. And boy, here it come. Fixes or strafe us. It was Jap Zero. And all at once, here's two more P-38s. And they just flew, and down he come. He hit right amongst all of us, that airplane. It buried up about 3 or 4 foot in the ground. Right out in front of us.
Yeah.
And of course, pilot was dead. So we kept going after that, and we got in our ways, and I don't remember. I'd have to look at my write-up in there. I don't remember what day it was, anyway, that I got the Bronze Star. It was a little community of many of them. But anyway, I know we was going along, and the water buffalo, one of these big old buffaloes, if they don't get water or have water in, keep them cool or something, well, they just turn mad. Anyway, this one was tied up. And one of the soldiers walked too close to him, and boy, he charged him, knocked him down. But when he did, old Donald Craig, he just up and shot it,
Yeah.
Killed him. And but anyway, we went on, and when we got to this Take Manihog, this hill there, why, we had 3 Army tanks. I don't remember how many men. Usually it took 5, to operate with them, but I don't remember whether there's that many in each tank or not. But anyway, we started to take this hill, and it got pretty rough, and they were in support of us. And they were firing, best they could if it's in bunkers or anything that way. And we were following along between the tanks or over on the side, like, and that's when things really began to get rough. Why, I remember Red Turner, that's the only I remember. Anyway, he got shot. And then we, as we went on, why, Speedy, my first scout, Albert Cowan, why, the Japanese was really dug in, holes, all over that hill. And they would raise up fire at us. So, Speedy, and I said, Speedy, I said, I'm going to keep them covered. Make them stay down. And I said, you run up there then to the side of the hole and get them. He said, okay. So, I went to fire. One right after the other. He run up there, he raised up like this with his rifle and pulled the trigger, and it snapped. Wouldn't do anything. He was just standing there trying to fix it. Run up, Speedy, you're going to get killed. Just standing there. Shoved him out of the way. So then we threw hand grenades. When it's close enough, we could get hand grenades, and that solved that problem.
What kind of hole were they in? Just
big, about 5 by 5 hole, and then they'd have to be kind of tunnel back.
Yeah.
But see, they knew too. There's times that you throw, if you had 3-second, 5-second hand grenades, and they were smart enough to figure out that if they could grab that and throw it back, so they'd throw it back on you. And of course, we didn't look to see how many seconds it was, And we threw one in there, and here it come back. Of course, we hit the ground, see. I was fortunate enough when we hit the ground, those hand grenades kind of exploded like this, see. And so the next one, we looked at the seconds on it. It was 3-second grenade. Well, we would pull the pin, let it pop, count 1, 2, then throw it. And it worked.
yeah.
So anyway, we kept going a ways, taking this hill, and several guys got wounded. I don't believe we had anybody killed that day. I think most of them just wounded with these tanks. So after we got the hill taken, the mission was called complete. That was our job, to take that particular hill. It wasn't a big hill, just a little rise like, but it was real thick with brush and stuff. And they had dug in all these places all over that, more than ever 50, 75 feet, you know, spotted here and there. Anyway, this lead tank is out kind of out front, and the other two was behind, you know, kind of V type. And I was up the side of this lead tank, and the other two got orders to pull back. Well, the lead tank radio didn't get the message, or it didn't, it was out or something. Then they kept going. Of course, we was fighting and shooting, and I finally saw the other tanks had turned to go back, and that's when I run out in front of the tank, and, you know, give them this, and they turn around and go back. Of course, that's when they turned around, there was a soldier, an enemy soldier, had a stick he launched with a magnetic mine on it. And he was trying to reach a tank, so that's when I shot him.
You shot him so it saved the tank and the guys in it.
You know, we got a bronze star for it, which I feel like ought to have been worth more than that.
Bronze medal. Yeah.
Huh?
Bronze medal. They called it, it's just bronze medal. Wasn't even a star, was it?
Well, yeah, it's made
Was it a star?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought they called it bronze medal.
It's made in the shape of.
Okay.
And they call it that or service or something.
Victorious, I think. Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't think much about it. I didn't even know I was going to get it until after we, a few days later, you know. And Captain Russell had said that he saw what had happened. But I got to thinking later, you know, well, they had a save of, at that time, a $50,000 or $75,000 tank and 3 or 4 or 5 men. It hardly been worth more than that. Because a lot of these guys, like Earl Oxford out there, if they were just in a combat zone, after the war, they issued all those guys bronze stars.
Yeah.
See, at least got a silver star, which is next up. But anyway, we kept going from there. We were supposed to make it to. You don't remember, we hadn't got on the hill.
Well, yeah, you was talking about being up on Razorback Ridge. Is that what you call it?
Well, we were holding on. See, that's why I don't remember whether we got that before we got up.
Yeah, you was talking about being on Razorback Hill. And
on this 800, Hill 800, and then we went over and to try to take Hill 200. But
200? Which one's called Razorback Hill?
200.
200. Well, you was talking about that, and you was talking about how that you just about dug in, and you found all that, and started shooting at the Japanese, and they hit your machine gun with the mortars.
Yeah, I got all that.
Yeah.
Did I get to the point? Well, that's all.
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
Did I tell about what happened is when we had to withdraw off that hill?
Well, you just said that you was withdrawing. How come you withdraw?
Well, because I guess I mentioned that all about. We later packs down, was digging in the trench and everything. Well, how come we had to draw? Why, going down this hillside was rolled up in high grass and everything, and some of the men noticed the enemy coming in that grass, and it was right on top of us nearly, and we didn't even have time to get all of our equipment and stuff. The only thing we could do is grab our rifles and ammunition and to try to get off. So they gave an order that so many men get back down the hill, and of course others were supposed to hold them off as much as we could. And a bunch went back down the hillside. They were going to cover for us that stayed up there, and Lieutenant not Lieutenant, but Captain Jones, running down the hill, and he fell down and skinned his knee bad, cut it. Of course, he got a Purple Heart for that. I think I said that.
Yeah, he's wounded in action, I guess.
And anyway, it wound up just as this all happened. And when we went up on this Razorback Hill, it was just, the sun was shining just as bright as could be. And when we got up on that hill and all this took place, why, before the first men got down the hill, why, it come one of the hardest rains that you nearly ever saw. You couldn't even hardly see the men back down the foot of the hill, and which is about a quarter of a mile. But anyway, Jack Kegel and I was the last two men off that hill. Jack was my second in command. He was the...
Now, you was a sergeant by this time?
Oh yeah, I was our staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant?
Yeah.
What kind of weapon did you have?
I had a M1. No, I was carrying a Tommy gun at that time. I had traded my M1 for a Tommy gun to a guy that was on a tank. We came up on some tanks.
Why would he trade that?
Well, he wanted an M1.
The M1 to shoot a little further.
Oh, a lot farther, yeah.
So maybe
45 wasn't good, but about for 50 yards or so, you know. And of course, that M1 was good if you could zero it in up to a mile, probably. But he wanted a M1, and I wanted a Tommy gun because, you know, up close.
How's that Tommy gun? How did you load it on? Did it have clips?
Yeah,
different clips?
Yeah, it had 20 rounds, and you could just pull the trigger, and it's automatic.
And then you could switch real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that's how come me to have the Tommy gun. And anyway, this hard rain came up, and just you couldn't hardly see. And Kegel and I, there's a man laying there, wounded, groaning and everything, and Kegel and I got him by the arms and drug him through a fence, and drug him back down the hill to where the rest of us was holding. And about the time we got back down the hill, well, that rain just shut off, just like if somebody turned it off. And of course, this friend or buddy died. He was dead by the time we got him back down the hill. But he got a piece of shrapnel right in here, just right close to his heart. He had a gash there about 3/4 of an inch long. And that's the only place that we could see on him, you know. But that's when one of those we had that machine gun set up, that's when one of those mortar shells hit right in the middle of it, see. And anyway, we were standing there kind of going over what we were going to have to do next and everything. And there's somebody spoke up and said, "Where in the world did that rain come from?" And the sergeant standing over there and looked at me and he said, "Sergeant, we know where it came from, don't we?" I said, "We sure do." Anyway, we had to withdraw and go back up on the big hill, which we could overlook the Razorback Hill. And did I tell how long we've been up on?
On the front line, 28 days?
28 days. We had already got on that hill 800 and took it and everything. And we all had wore the same clothes for that 28 days, from the day we hit the beach. And we were just holding because we got so under strength, had lost so many men and everything, and we couldn't go on because we just didn't have the manpower. So they sent word they're going to send us all a change of uniforms up there, and they could get a jeep close enough where they get them up there and everything. So they did. They sent a change of uniforms, fatigues for the men, and I saw that all my men had a change of clean uniform. And when I got through, I was one shirt or blouse short, just had a pair of pants. So I put the new pants on and wore that same shirt in another 10 days before we relieved. And But coming up that hill 800, we had 35 men pass out because of heat exhaustion. And I don't know how true it was. They told us it got up to 135 that day. So anyway, and when we were holding on that hill, why, that's when we lost several men by enemy anti-tank guns and things. Anyway, we didn't get to, they didn't send us back over on that Razorback Hill, but we had another division come up and relieved us, and they took it. And the report came back that at the bottom of that little hill, that enemy had dug back and made caves, a tunnel under that hill. And they could put trucks, big trucks under there, like 2-ton trucks, drive them up and under that hill. And that's where they were when we...
That's why they didn't want you on there.
Yeah, that's right. And anyway, after they said to kill 500 enemies after trying to take it, see, after we were left and pulled back. But we went from there back to a little town called Tarlac, which we had already taken on the way up there, and set up our camp. And we had nice tents. We got them all set up. They told us we'd probably never have to go back to front line. So we got it all fixed. And man, had everything real nice. And everything was running real good. We was enjoying ourselves. And 2 weeks later, they gave orders. It took us about a week to get the camp set up. Then after another week, while they gave us orders, they was going to go to the other end of the island. We had Manila, had already been taken, Cabanatuan, and Clark Field and everything. And so we had to break camp, and we sent trucks up there, these big trucks that haul, 24 men about. And we loaded on that thing, and then we went through Manila over to several miles through town. And this is where we set up. And we made the first, according to the word came down, that we were to make the first night movement in the South Pacific. That they never did, move at night. But the Ipoh Dam was a water supply for Manila and some other little towns around there. At least it was part of where they got the water. And the Ipoh Dam, where the enemy had that occupied real strong.
How big was the dam at Ipoh Dam?
I don't know. It wasn't about 200 or 300 feet long, I guess, but it backed up water, several miles.
That's big lake.
Yeah. And on each side of the dam, there was big hill, it's in between. The creek, they call them river, came down through there. But anyway, when we made that night movement, we started out just before dark. And we were the only way we knew where we were going, every little bit they'd drop a white phosphorus grenade on the hill where we were supposed to go. And we'd keep going in that direction. And it began to rain not too long after we got started. And of course it was dark as pitch. And we had, the enemy got it within our lines, got in line with us. And of course, when they discovered that what had happened, why they took care of it. But then we had to hold hands and march all night till just before daybreak the next morning. And we went down this trail for several miles until we come to a point of the hill that we were supposed to get on the next morning. But we didn't want to move up there until daybreak, so we could really see what we was going to have to take. And so we went down this trail, run along that river for several miles, and we moved off up at about 50 yards or so up off the trail, and just going to hold there until got daylight for us to move. But we could hear the enemies coming up that trail there, and hear them talking, lighting their cigarettes and everything, and there we were, just 100 or so men up 50 yards or so off that trail. They never knew we was there until the next morning. But anyway, the big hill that really had the biggest gun on it was right across the river from where we were. We could see the hill up, how high it was and everything. And of course, in the morning when we moved up on this ridge where we were going to hold, why, of course, they started firing on us with machine guns and anti-tank guns and a little bit of everything else, you know. It was very fortunate we didn't have anybody get killed at a particular time. Then we thought we were going to have to take that big hill, but they sent a group up. They had a road come. The road was being occupied by the enemy. The main road coming to